I'm over the moon. I think we since you talked about Logan Cooley, I think we hop right into it, right? Let's go
Mm-hmm.
with third overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft. The Coyotes were privileged enough to have both centermen sitting at number 3 as the Montreal Canadiens picked Yuri Slavkovsky, which I was surprised they didn't boo him, but they did boo him on the red carpet outside of the event. So Canadian fans saying, "Oh, they won't boo him." You still booed him, even though it wasn't at the actual draft.
But
Uh,
there is consistency there. Just like to cut you off very briefly, there's consistency there because the narratives change so quickly for a lot
mhm.
of hockey fans. So like it's kind of almost poetic where like 30 or 40 minutes before they're booing the kid on the red carpet, and then now they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the guy we wanted the entire time."
Yeah.
Dude, did you see the Philly or not Philly? What's it, the New Jersey fans' reactions to picking Nemec? Did
No,
you
I didn't.
see? So it was on Twitter. If I remember, which I probably won't, I might send it to you. But they were like, "Oh yeah, we're getting right." They picked Nemec. No, no. Look, I don't think right would work in Philadelphia because look at their current coach. They've never really been good with dealing with like a top couple line mostly to defensive center because Wright's going to be mostly a two-way guy. I just don't think that would have worked. But do you want to talk briefly for like a minute or two as to why the Coyotes didn't pick Shane Wright, why they would choose Cooley over him? And obviously, I have to disclose every time I talk about it. Someone that I do know personally spoke to him. I
Yep.
knew this for months. He had no interest in Arizona. That is the only bit that I was given that he had no interest. I know where he wants to go, but that's confident. So I'm like, look, as soon as I heard that, I don't want him here anymore. If you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. Bill Armstrong is like, we want kids that want to play here.
Yep.
And, for Cooley, which we'll get into in a second, I'm like, dude, he's a 10 and he wants to play in the desert. Like, and he
Yep.
wants to be here. That's why we're so excited. But why
Mhm.
would you think, other than just that aspect, which was a very strict thing BA said, why else would they not want to pick Wright? Why else would they pick Cooley over Wright?
Okay, so we'll get on to the on ice and off ice of why Shane Wright dropped to number 4 and the Coyotes did not pick him. So first of all, to keep it private, he wants to play for a Canadian team, and like obviously that means that he's not going to be very dedicated to Arizona. At 26, when he's a free agent, he could probably just scurry off to Canada to play for whatever team he wants to play for. There are rumblings that he was not a very good draft interview for a lot of teams. So that is a big problem because you got to be, in a good mindset. And if you're talking pretty negatively about other teams or about players or your how you're being looked at in the draft or whatever, that is like kind of a little bit of a red flag for the off ice type of stuff. We saw this publicly. He was getting a lot of scrutiny and whatnot for potentially going first overall, and he was not being so nice about it, or he wasn't being so calm about it. And it even got to the point where even his parents were like deleting Twitter to avoid the scrutiny. I'm just like, it is what it is. You have to be able to take the blows. You're a high draft pick for one of the 4 major sports in North America. Like, you're going to get scrutiny. Like, this is what you have to deal with. And it just seemed very weird that he was heavily scrutinized and they were almost on kind of like the brink of complaining about it. And when I say they, I'm talking about the Wright clan. They seemed very I'm going to use a soft word here, upset about how much scrutiny their son was getting. So that was a little weird. Secondly, the type of player he is, right? And that wasn't a pun. The second would be the type of player he is, which is that he is a more defensively responsible centerman. He is not going to wow you with passes or anything like that. He has a really good shot, but he is more defensively responsible. Here's the problem with that. The Coyotes have already drafted a defensively responsible centerman at 5th overall named Barrett Hayton. Why do you need a slightly better Barrett Hayton in your team? Right? So, what would you prefer? A guy who may or may not have an attitude problem. We saw that clearly on draft day because he stared down the Montreal Canadiens, draft team as he was going up and shaking Bettman's hand. It's like, was he led on by Montreal? Maybe, but
reports did say that they told him they were going to take him 1st overall. Just you have that information. There were reports that said that they told him that, but at the same time, they also didn't say when they told him that, because they could have told him that and then interviewed, and then it's like, no, or they could have just thought about it more at the draft table. But just so you have that context. Yeah,
I mean, even regardless, even if you say so or not, like, I feel like mean mugging a team is not a good look. Like, now you make Seattle look embarrassed because of your actions on the stage. Like, it's just it's a terrible thing. I can't remember who it was. Was it the NFL who had a player who did that similarly? I don't remember.
Actually, Arizona Cardinal Josh Rosen, he in like the post draft interviews, like, I think he was taken 14th overall. I forget where his spot was when the Cardinals took him, but there were X amount of teams above me that made the mistake of not picking me, and I'm gonna show them that they made a mistake for the next decade. Shane Wright said the exact same thing, and the whole like mean mugging thing, where I'm like, look, that's a very immature thing, and I was commenting on a Seattle fan's YouTube page. Where I'm like, hey, I really hope that these reported attitude problems get ironed out, because I had nothing against Seattle. And on top of that, on paper, Matty Beniers, number 1, Shane Wright, number 2, that is a lethal top 6. I got nothing against that in any context, but how many times have we seen maturity issues ruin careers? Let's just take a slight detour just to extend on this point, but only for like 30 seconds. Not the same severity, completely different severity, but look at what someone's attitude, look at what someone's off-ice issues in Tony DeAngelo has done to his career and any team he's gone to. Now, we are not saying, I want very clear, Matt and Rich of the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast are not saying Shane Wright is anything like Tony DeAngelo, but I'm just pointing at a possible worst-case scenario where stuff like attitude problems or poor off-ice behavior can turn into worse things and ruin someone's career or ruin the atmosphere and affect other players' careers. So it's like, I really hope that does get ironed out, because even though I don't want him on the team, I still don't want to see a young hockey player like throw their career away because they're immature or they felt entitled to something and then they didn't get it. So that's why they didn't pick Wright.
I have a little bit better of an example, which is, I don't remember what draft it was. I think it was 2018. Philip Zadina dropped out of the top 3 and was picked up by Detroit. He had an interview quote after the draft saying, "I'm gonna fill everybody who didn't pick me. I'm gonna fill your nets with pucks." And I mean, a bit snarky, but if you walk the walk and talk the talk, then fine. But Philip Zadina has not become a regular NHL player. He has not filled the nets of the people who didn't draft him previous. So just one of those things, like, if you're gonna have an attitude problem, you better back up that attitude problem. And we'll see. But to go back to who we picked with that 3rd overall pick, Logan Cooley, potentially going to be one of the best offensive centermen in this draft. Has some incredible speed, hands, skill, shots, pretty good. It's not great, but the vision, the skill, the hands, all that is really good. That is what you're getting. A lot of criticism goes on his size because he is 5'10 and a half. He'll grow probably another half inch, probably get to about 5'11. You know who else is 5'11? I don't know if you've heard of him, but Sidney Crosby is 5'11. So, I don't know. Just kind of a weird guy, you know. But
I think he sounds like a scrub.
Sorry, what did you say? I think I was coughing.
He sounds like a scrub.
Yeah, of course.
Probably like a fourth line plug. Like
Yeah.
a Paul Bissonnette type, you know.
Now, granted, you know, I'm not saying he's Sidney Crosby, but you know, to say like, oh, you're not 6 foot, so you can't be a centerman, that's absolute BS. And yeah, so I think it is great that the Coyotes went with the guy who they needed skill for. As I was mentioning, they already have Barrett Hayden, who can be a defensively responsible centerman. You don't need that on your team. You need a guy who is a guaranteed, bona fide first-line guy. Don't know if he'll be a franchise guy, but he'll at least be a good first-line center. So I am super happy they did that. Obviously, as I'm talking about the attitude thing with Shane Wright, the opposite is kind of similar with Cooley. He is already publicly stated he doesn't mind the 5,000 seat arena. It doesn't bother him. He sees their vision. He sees their goals. He is ecstatic to come to Arizona because he always looked up to Clayton Keller as he was going through the United States Development Program. Yeah, he sounds like he's saying all the right things, which is good mindset to have. Another interesting thing I saw was they did the draft day interviews for day 1 and day 2 of all the players that were there. Mm-hmm. Somebody spilled the beans about their interview. Apparently, one of the first things that the Coyotes did when you walked in to do the interviews with the Coyotes is they sat them down and they played the video about what the new arena would look like in Tempe. And so I'm assuming their pitch was probably like, do you see our vision? Would you want to be a part of our vision? Which is, I think, a good pitch, but very, very interesting. So that is the pitch that they're going for is the arena side of it.